To the extreme example, right? Let's say you have two very civilized people who decide to stay together for the kids and they are not fighting. Mm-hmm. Are the kids blind to the fact that there is no love between you two?
No.
You know what I mean? Is that good for them?
No. It's harder for you to leave than it is on the kids. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
What you're trying to fix is probably going to damage the most.
Yeah, and by the time you realize that, you're going to be so pissed that you spent another 5, 10 years, 15 years in something that inevitably was going to break.
And possibly missed your opportunity to be with the person that you were meant to be with.
Correct.
Yeah, leave and create in two beautiful spaces.
I'm not going to lie, I'm really excited about today's episode where we answer questions from young women. This is the third of a 3-part series. I've got my boys here with me. We're ready to roll. Now, if this is your first time checking us out, please hit the follow button so you can be notified every time we release an episode. Welcome to Manhood Matters. Let's get right to it.
From the distant past.
Oh man, this was good. So we are back. We are in the living room. We're here with Leon Cohen, Delva Michel, and Justin Bradford. We're going to speak to you guys and answer some questions. These women just sent in their questions, and we're going to answer with as much wisdom, experience, and grace as
Good questions,
possible.
by the way, ladies. Thank you.
Yeah, for real.
Hopefully we're providing the necessary insight you need to get what you want out of it.
Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for just being open and vulnerable and wanting to learn and wanting to be better. So with all that said, I'm going to pass it back to Justin.
So the question is, do you think double standards are a good or bad thing? Hypocrisy. I would definitely say it's a bad thing.
Well, it all depends. To me, it depends on what it is that is a double standard. So for instance, my son is 19, he's 6 feet tall, he's got 2 of his buddies, and they are going to the corner store at 11 o'clock at night. I'm not as worried. My daughter wants to do the exact same thing. She's 5'1" and a quarter. It's different for me. When people say there's a double standard, I think the person they're referring to is anything you can do, I can do it as well. Mm-hmm. That's true intellectually, but as far as something that to me is common sense, we're talking safety and someone who's physically able to handle themselves versus someone who's not, I would look at that a little bit different. So I think it all depends on what it is that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's circumstantial as far as if it's good or if it's bad. Because the example you used, perfect, it's bad. Would not make sense to say, well, they can go, why can't I go? But then also there's going to be like the point of your girl saying, well, you can go out and have your cigar night with your guys and go to the cigar lounge. Why can't I go out to the club and party with my girls? And you're like, two different things. But in her mind, she's going to categorize it at the same and say, well, now you're being a hypocrite or now you're being unfair and you're doing one thing but won't allow me to do the same thing. When in reality, we know intentions are much different for that circumstance. So I think it's circumstantial, but I think for the most part, they're a bad thing to say everything you can do, I can do.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Leon?
I 100% agree in double standards. So I gave you the Bible premise where we weren't born equally.
You said the E word.
Yeah, we weren't. We
There are a couple of E words. I want to touch on another one in a minute, but go ahead.
We weren't born to be equal. So there are parameters, there are provisions in life where double standards exist. And the more we try to equate equality, the further we get apart in our purposes, and getting on roles and being able to get along. Because as long as two people feel like there's an equal balance to the relationship, then there's no need for the other, because who's in charge? On teams in business, 2 alpha males don't make it. Alpha male, alpha woman have a hard time coexisting. Someone has to be able to suppress or, as we said, submit to the other. So I'll give you the Obamas as the example. Michelle is just as dominant in that relationship, it seems from the outside, as Barack is. But what happens is she knows when to submit, and so does he. And that's where the equality comes from. So one is not equal to the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
She's a wife. She submits when she's supposed to submit. He submits when he's supposed to submit. And that's where the balance comes in. What happens in that I see where the problem comes in, there's one person that always wants to win.
But there's also healthy double standards. It's like if she's pulling you closer to God, she's like, I go to church at 9 a.m. Why can't you go to? So like, it's a circumstantial thing is what I've kicked this thing off with. It's like, there's so many, I go to the gym. Why can't you go to the gym? Because that's the betterment of us. But yet again, if you're like, oh, well, you can have female friends, why can't I have male friends?
Correct.
Well, now it could be like, well, my only female friends are in the workplace. Your male friends are from like
Past relationships.
Yeah. And they were like the fraternity to your sorority, like all those different things. Because these are younger girls. It's like, is it going to build you up or break you down if that double standard is applied? Because you're going to build up your family unit and keep them safe if you tell your daughter, don't go to the corner store. But now if you say the opposite, yeah, let's have the double standard. You can go to the corner store because he goes to the, well, now all of a sudden there's kidnappings, there's crazy things that happen.
Someone's hurt, right.
Bingo. So now you're breaking your family apart because you're jeopardizing the safety of one another because of your double standard. So healthy and harmful at the same time, just depends on the circumstance.
All right, next question.
Can I be...
Uh-oh.
You already know it's going to be good. Yeah. He said F and started laughing.
All right. Can I be a feminist?
There you go. Here
and
we go.
still have a successful relationship with a man, or do I have to pick one? You pick one or pick none. That's my answer.
I'm glad she actually said with a man, right? Because it all depends on what you're looking for. Because if you want to be the man, and in that sense, then yeah, it's going to be tough to have a relationship with a real man in the sense that we understand what a real man is. If by being a feminist, you mean equal pay for equal work, I agree with you. You could be empowered. You can have all of that and yet bask in your feminine energy.
I have a question. Is there a blurred line between feminism and modern women?
Yes. Modern woman is just a woman of this time. Feminist can be even back in the day, because feminism to me means fighting for equality and some. Like people can say, oh, modern women are horrible. Well, some women are good. Like you're just saying.
It doesn't have to be, right?
Yeah, you're categorizing the women of this time period that are in the dating pool, as opposed to a feminist could have existed in 1930, but she just wasn't the dominant group, so nobody paid her as much mind as nowadays with social media. If you're a feminist, you go super viral, and now you have this big following, and now you're pushed out even more.
Where were you going with it?
I would say you have to pick one, because although being a feminist is just, by bare definition, is just fighting for women's right, but fighting for that right sometimes is blurred with equality, right? So I'll give you a quick example, right? I used to work at UPS as a loader, physical job.
Me too. I did it for like 3 months. I was
too.
suspended 3 times.
So you
My
guys
back
know what
hurts.
I'm talking about.
Yeah. We all three did this.
Okay, so we get paid $21 an hour, just like everybody else across the board. Women, men, doesn't matter. And I get called by my supervisor after loading 3 trucks to go help a lady whose package is a little bit too heavy. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. We want to be equal. This is equality. You fought for that, own it. It's not that I didn't want to help the lady, but I'm not getting paid anymore. I'm already tired. Now, oh no, they're too heavy for her.
That's a job that she actually got, which means she's qualified to
Absolutely.
do it. Right.
And then she was like, you don't want to help a woman? No, it's not that. It's because on the application, they ask you, can you lift 65 pounds or less? Anything over 65, you need a partner. But if it's under 65, we good. And you said yes. You get paid exactly the same amount of money. Let's equality be equality. Or just tell me we're not equal and then we're good. Absolutely.
There's nothing that I want. I've got daughters.
Right.
Yes.
There's nothing that I don't want for my girls. There's no barrier that should be close to them because they're a woman.
Right.
That just shouldn't be the case.
Absolutely.
But there are certain physical attributes, no different than a man decides to become a woman. Now he goes and he starts boxing in the UFC and beating women. There's a reason he's dominating. We have physical attributes. We're stronger. We're faster for the most part. I'm being very generic here.
Right.
That's kind of where our advantage stops. We accept that role. I don't particularly want to be the one who runs towards danger, but that's my job. That's my responsibility. If I'm protecting my family, that's what I do. I don't sit there and debate with my wife. I don't think about that
It's
for
natural.
1 second.
It's
It's
a
my
natural
job
instinct.
to do that.
You're like, baby,
Right?
get him.
Exactly. Exactly.
You gonna let him do that to us?
Exactly. I'm over here like I fought the last 2, but the reality is, if you understand that equal pay for equal work, etc., absolutely, and a real man who loves and supports you is going to agree. There's no dispute here.
This one says, how do I determine whether or not it's a red flag or something negative that we can work through?
Well, I am a believer in my instincts, right? And what I mean by that is if something sounds like a deal breaker for me or is off that I need some further explanation for, my instincts usually don't steer me wrong. And I think where people usually get into trouble is when they don't listen to their instincts. So, or it's a red flag for you because instinctually you heard something or felt something that raised something or a concern within you, but you chose to ignore it. And then when it happens, then you're like, oh, damn, I knew.
They have this amazing gift, intuition. I think theirs is even more in tune than ours for the most part.
I agree.
And if you choose to not listen to that voice within, that's on you. The biggest problem is sometimes when they choose to ignore it is simply because they think they can change somebody.
So it goes back to that old saying where it says, women marry a man expecting them to change, and a man marries a woman hoping they don't.
Yes, that's so good. That's so good.
That is
That one
so
is so good.
Yeah. Thinking back to the question and the way it was formulated, I think you have to first determine what your standards are. Then when you see something that goes against those core values and those principles, it's a red flag for a reason. Don't think you're going to work through it. Now, you might want to give him one opportunity to explain it because maybe you misinterpreted something. So then you have that discussion. If the red flag persists and they just tell you, no, that's just the way I am, or they're not telling you, but they're showing you.
So let's give an example.
I got some good ones.
Dude hits you and smacks you around, and he's like, baby, I'll never do it again. Probably a red flag that you need to pay attention to.
Most definitely.
Done.
Because he's
definitely.
probably going to knock your head off the next time, but
Absolutely.
probably worse because you accepted that.
The fact that you even stayed means that he's allowed to do it again.
Correct. Red flag as in, oh, he left the toilet seat up, and that's now how I subscribe, and I asked him not to do that. Well, you can probably, that's a workaround.
That's a yellow flag.
That's a yellow
that's
flag.
yellow.
That's not a red
Agreed.
one.
Yeah.
Right? Like I say, I trust your instincts, but also use some discernment. I'm not going to even say common sense because common sense ain't common. Use some discernment in what's a red flag for you and a deal breaker.
To determine, I kind of took this question as how would I answer it myself rather than just like seeing it from her side. I said a red flag is something you can't change, cannot.
Yes.
Factual. A yellow flag is something you can change. She's valued for her past. I'm going to question her more on her past, as she's probably going to interrogate me on my future. And a lot of my future things can change. So if she saw a yellow flag, which is a negative, which we can probably work through. She said, what are your career goals? X, Y, Z. That's not good enough, but I know I can push him to be a better man. That's something you can work through. But if she says, what are your future goals? Well, I've been arrested 14 times, beat my last... You can't get through that.
Yeah,
So
you're a career criminal.
the red flags are factual. Negatives are something that can be changed or altered with help and application.
I was going to say, usually red flags, you set yourself, right, for yourself.
Correct.
So what would you try to work through it?
That's the one right there, brother. Because what's a red flag for one woman is not for another woman.
Right.
So if you determine what a red flag is, why are you working
Why are
through
you
it?
working through it?
Right.
Next question.
Yep.
Cool.
We said all that shit just for Delva to come in and summarize it in 6 words.
Well, I mean,
One liner.
other than that, we wouldn't even.
We were going to move on a long time.
I was trying to find what to say because it was playing in my head. I'm like, what's a red flag that you set for
That's
yourself?
what we talk about, right? We talk about when you're in it, you don't see it. What's obvious to you is not going to be obvious to another.
Yeah.
Because the same women that be like, girl, I wouldn't stay, is the same one that get their ass whooped and stay for multiple times and they want to tell somebody else when to leave.
Next question is it a waste of time to date a man that's never been in a committed relationship? Basically, am I insane for thinking I'd be his first successful one? I'd
No.
love to answer this.
Yeah,
You can
go
answer
ahead,
it.
please go ahead.
Because that's me.
That's you.
Yeah, exactly. You've never exactly. Is it a waste of time for a woman to date you, Justin?
I would hope not. Exactly. Because the thing is, now I will say this. To the contrary, I'm playing the devil's advocate. Why has he never been in a committed relationship?
Correct.
Where was his interest? Where was his time being allocated? And if you can actually see that and discern the truth behind his answer, then you'll know. Because if he's like, oh, well, I was playing football. Football players got time and opportunity and attention. So what was he doing when he wasn't playing ball? Because if he wasn't the top in his class, or if he wasn't the 4-star, 3-star, 5-star recruit, what was he doing? But the thing is, like, when you can talk to a person and get to know them, and as you talked about, intuition is a female's, supernatural gift. You know if that's a good man or a bad man because it's binary. You can't say, oh, well, sometimes he's masculine, sometimes he's not. Like Monday through Friday, he's good, but on the weekends he wears a dress.
What?
It would be crazy. So there's no flip-flopping. There's no, gray area of that. He's a good man. He's a bad man. He's either going to give you a good relationship or he's not. So don't try to like create some new standard of, well, maybe I'm going to be the one if everything in his past has been temporary for
Showing
his
you the
fault.
opposite.
Yeah, for his fault.
So going to your train of thought, the answer to that question is you never know when you're going to be the one if you never take the shot.
In a sense, but also before you even take the shot, know the game, study the plays, see who this character is. Because it's like if you go into a game blind and you don't know they run a 2-2-1 press and you're expecting a triangle, you're like, uh-oh, new game. So like see his past, see why he wasn't. And if the reason makes sense and it was very logical reason as to why he wasn't in a previous committed relationship, way different. Or if he said, you know, every girl I talk to, I bring him home to my mom, and my mom usually throws a flip-flop at him. Okay, well, you're probably not going to be the next one, and you would be insane for thinking it's going to work.
The biggest thing that I tell women all the time about dating and being the quote-unquote one is timing is everything. So I'll give you an example. My wife right now, so we met through a mutual friend at a birthday party that was not given at his house. But when he was giving parties at his house, we were in the same place for 10 years. Like, so we would be at his parties over 10 years. I'd be upstairs playing cards. She'd be downstairs dancing, having drinks, whatever. We didn't meet. As a matter of fact, we were at a party, a New Year's Eve party that was not at his house, at a spot in Atlanta, and danced back to back with each other. And the reason why I say the reason we know we danced back to back with each other is because we knew each other's exes and we saw them at that party, right? So we had to dance back to back because I was like, wait a minute, I saw him. And she was like, oh yeah, I saw her. So we were back to back, which is why we didn't see each other. 10 whole years. We didn't meet until we met, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. She saw me 2 weeks before that actual meeting at another event. We connected that night. We've been together 20 years since then. Timing is everything. Because had we met earlier, we were not ready for each other.
Correct.
But this is what I would say. For a man under 25 who's never been in a committed relationship, it's not so much a red flag.
Correct.
Over 25, 35,
40.
Well,
40.
Yeah.
Well, so let's stay in that. Let's stay in
56.
let's stay in that bracket. Hopefully, these young women are not dating 40, 50-year-olds, right? So,
It's a thing.
Yeah, some might.
Trust me.
But
Don't put it past them.
listen,
oh shit. Let's not. I'm not. That's another podcast. Right?
Okay, right.
I'm just saying.
If a man is 25, let's not go to 35. You're saying 25
to 30.
to 30, and he's never been in a committed relationship.
It's a little bit of a red flag for me
Okay.
because
But what about the reason? What about what he said?
Because I even kind of gave my own boundary of like, I don't want to have a girlfriend until I'm probably 26 to 28.
you a unicorn, right? Because you focus somewhere else. But most of us, 25-year-olds, have been in at least a couple relationships, serious,
Easy,
committed.
Yeah. You have an exceptional drive and focus that the average person your age has.
Not common, yeah.
So what I would say to the ladies, I'm going back to conversations, intentional conversations. So thinking to get something out of it, right, for yourself. Over 25, hitting 30, never had a serious relationship, and you just around, hitting the clubs.
Yeah.
Come on,
There's a reason.
Yeah. There's a reason for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So so then to answer that young lady's question, if that's the reason, and he's never been in a relationship because maybe he runs away. As soon as he gets very serious, he takes off.
Absolutely.
He's got mommy issues. Yeah, you might be insane to think you're going to be the one, especially if there's no conversations around that.
Facts.
Okay, but if there's a reason and that person can articulate those reasons,
I get that all the time too.
yeah, and the person answers it, and you go, that's logical. Now, don't think I'm about to change that.
Right.
Don't do that. That's the worst thing you can do, right? So if a woman asks him this question, right, and they say that to him, he goes, not for at least another 4 years. In the back of her mind, she's thinking, I'm going to change that. We're going to date, but I want to change that. Even if it works and you end up in a serious relationship, there's going to be resentment later on.
Yep, you're
Right?
distracting
Because
me from my
exactly
focus.
whatever goal he doesn't hit, he's going to hold you accountable for it and hold you responsible for, at least put some blame on you, because he's like, I had a plan, I had a goal, and now it's different.
But what I would tell women, if they really want to know the answer to certain questions, as opposed to asking, they will tell you the truth in conversations instead of straight up ask, oh, why haven't you had a girlfriend? They could tell you anything. But if you hold them to a serious conversation, they will tell you the truth without even asking.
That is a refined art. I know exactly what you're saying. Don't ask a question directly. You could ask.
Why?
But the more you talk to them,
Absolutely.
and even if you just understand their philosophy on life, on relationships.
Come on.
You could be watching a movie together and watch certain things and ask them what their take is on
Yes,
it.
sir.
Maybe you read a book, you recommend that book to that person. Hopefully they'll read it or they'll listen to it or whatever, right? And then you see what their take is. It tells you everything about them. It tells you so much more about them. And that's a great point. And I hope, ladies, as you're listening to this, it makes so much sense, you know?
So I got a question.
Ask
before
without
we move
asking,
on for
but yeah.
Justin. Since we are OGs and we dated differently than what you guys date now, from her question, how could she get that answer? It appears to me that you guys do more texting than talking.
Not me. Yeah, I'm like an old soul trapped in a young body. Like, I'm very direct. I get told basically on every date, this feels like an interrogation. I'm like, good. Because questions bring clarity. Clarity brings confidence. So I feel like questioning has to happen for anything else to take off from there.
So you think that might be one of the reasons why you haven't had a serious relationship either, is because
Questioning, and I figure out who they are before they need to show me. 2 questions reveals every girl, to me at least, is I say,
Oh, you about to tell him?
oh, should I give it to him? No, that's on the Patreon. That's paid for. That's in the after hours.
What are your 2 questions? Let's give them something
Yeah.
special. Manhood matters special. What are your 2 questions?
And they can reverse this on the guys, because I go, number 1, what defines a healthy relationship to you and what defines a toxic relationship? Because that shows me how she was raised. That shows me her parents. That shows me her principles. That shows me how thorough she is in her answers, because that's a deep question.
And women can use the exact same question on the guy. They can ask them.
And
the
if that
same-
guy answers in 2 sentences, come on.
Yeah,
unless
no
he's-
thought behind it.
Yeah, unless he has some profound answer in 2 sentences, that's very rare. And the second thing I say is, give me 5 words to describe your closest friends, because your friends make up you.
You're an average of the 5 closest
You hang
people
around
to you.
there. It's a
Absolutely.
cliche, because then, like, if a girl asks me that, or I'll be like, how are your this is my 3rd question, another boom, bomb drop, right? I say, how many of your friends aren't in relationships? Because when they ask me that question, I'm like, my friends are 30, they're married. I mean, everybody got a partner.
Your friends are 50-year-olds.
right.
That's the thing. Like, all my mentors are 40 plus, and all these guys got wives and 3 kids, and they've been happily married. Like, and then they're like, well, why aren't you? And then I give my reasoning, and they're like,
I'm 22.
Yeah, I'm still a baby. But the same thing is, like, I say the same
Different
time.
mindset, though.
Yeah, they definitely understand where I'm coming from, because they know I'm not friends with a bunch of the frat boys or I'm friends with the athletes, but my athletes are like stuck in Bible study and playing ball. So it's like, everybody I hang around is an influence or an inspiration to many. How could I all of a sudden be the darkness?
Great questions. Those are 3 awesome questions. Very, very insightful. You're not going to get some surface level bullshit. You're going to find 1 or 2 things about them. Either there's depth to that person and they can answer the question, or they're just
Stupid.
Keep
it blunt, man.
You know,
Dumb.
they say certain things. You're like, what the fuck? Not even touch. The question that I asked.
And that's when I ask for the bill real quick. I'm like, hey.
So that's where I was going. Are these conversations even happening?
I can only speak from my experience, because I know other dudes are taking them to like the dive bar or the coffee shop, or I don't do that. Like, I'm fine dining. I'm going to invite you out, tell you the dress code, tell you the time, more than likely get flowers depending on how our texting or call went, because I'm always going to call you before I see you, because if you don't have enough intelligence, you're not going to get my attention. So you pass the piss test. All right, well, now let's meet in person. I'm gonna see your etiquette. I'm gonna see your manners. I'm gonna ask you questions. I'm gonna see how you treat the service workers. I'm gonna see if you even try to split the bill. Like, because I'm very traditional in my way. So like, I do everything in the old school way of how it should be done. So I can only say, like, these conversations are always held for me first time I meet you, and that's probably what turns me away from a lot of women that could have been good quality, because from the outside they look good, but from the inside it's ugly.
So your boys, their dating is different, right? So what is their dating experience like? I mean, so what I'm trying to get to, Justice, is are these conversations, the questions that we're being asked, are these conversations actually happening, or are these just curiosities?
Not for the average man my age. No.
Thankfully, I ain't dated in 20 years, and all I hear about is people sliding in each other's DMs and all of this, and I'm just like, well, okay, y'all having conversation through text, where a lot of the conversation can be misconstrued. You don't have no emotion, no tone,
Tonality,
no
nothing.
context. Y'all using emojis, y'all using, that's where the emotion comes in, or all caps, and it's like, okay.
The emotion is an emoji.
Yeah, right. The emotion's an emoji, or all caps, or this, that, and the other.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And there's no context to it.
Did you see the exclamation point?
Leon,
Right.
not only does conversations not happening, when they do happen, they're not even full words,
Right.
or full sentences.
It's slang,
Yeah.
Slanglish.
Right.
What
they're
you doing?
talking.
WYD.
Yes.
Look,
Yeah.
what?
And this is my number
Where
one
you
red
at?
flag. Like, cause you guys probably heard of Snapchat at least. Like,
Yes.
if a woman
Man,
has Snapchat,
what the hell you mean? We know what shit Snapchat
okay,
is.
just making sure.
I can't.
We're not that old.
Listen, you probably heard of that.
Hey, guess what? He's not wrong. I only heard of it. I never used it.
I've never used it. But shit,
There we go.
all know what
Here
it
we go.
is.
So that's like what my generation was growing up on Snapchat, right? So if a woman even has Snapchat, done. Reason why is because it's a bunch of pictures of half your face, mirror pictures, bikini pictures, random stuff. They communicate not even with words, with pictures.
That's crazy.
Just to keep a streak number going, saying, I've talked to him for 57 days, but what did you actually talk about? Because to my point, and this is the thing that I know I have guaranteed wisdom on the fact that these conversations aren't happening for my age and demographic is every woman always goes, I've never been asked that. I could imagine. So let's hear you answer. And they're like, well, I need to think. No rush. We got a meal.
Take your time.
Yeah, we're not going nowhere. 'Cause and even through text, like when I'm vetting a girl out and qualifying her and asking her, you know, are you in school at all? Do you study or what do you currently do? When I ask, just what are you looking for? When I ask, like, what is your intention? When I ask these through text,
Tension.
they're already like, ooh, he's different. But then they get in person, it's like, oh, this wasn't Chat GPT. They're like,
Right.
he's real deal, just coming up with questions because he cares.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Why the hell was the question again?
The question was, is it a waste of time to date a man that's never been in a committed relationship?
No, we already covered
we
that.
addressed that.
We covered that. We just went somewhere else with it.
We covered that, but the way we derailed it was because I wanted to know.
Right.
Oh,
was
you
these
started
questions.
dating his life.
You started interviewing Justin.
Yeah, I had a question with him because I'm like, these are questions and they're great questions.
They are.
But I'm like, are these young women asking
Correct.
The conversations
person.
happen.
in person?
Never.
And are these conversations being had?
And I'll say this too. This happens so much that I literally have to put a rule out there before I even ask my first question to these girls. I go, we're not playing Uno. There's no reverse. You are not going to copy and paste my question because I'm going to see their intellect. Because if they just take what I say and ask it back, it's a great question.
What about you?
I'm like, oh my God. All right. So yeah, I heard this one before. But like when I say you have to create your own question, when I see how curious she truly is.
Before we move on, because we are moving on, I just want to ask this one question. Earlier when Leon was interviewing you, he asked one of those questions and you basically said you want to see how she is on the date. And you mentioned one thing and I don't want it to be misinterpreted. So hopefully we didn't lose someone. I want to go back to it. You said you want to see if she would offer to split the bill. What are you expecting?
Never.
Exactly. Thank you.
No, and a lot of them will even offer on like a dessert because they're like, oh, you pay for dinner, let me pay for like dessert and let's go get ice cream. Even to that, I'm like, my grandfather always taught me they don't touch a bill, they don't touch a door.
There you go. I like that. Next question.
Okay, next question, very short one, says, are daddy issues a real thing?
Hell yes.
Hell yeah. That's
Absolutely.
Hell yes.
Next question.
We don't got to dive into that one.
The next question.
Yeah, they should have asked more.
It's a real thing. God damn, we're not even gonna elaborate a little
No,
bit.
we don't need to.
no.
No, you do. No, you do.
Yeah, it's
Because they don't even know. They don't even know what daddy issues.
No. Now, this is what we should do. Are daddy issues a real thing? How do you identify and how do you solve them?
Yes.
I don't know how to solve it, but I'm gonna tell you, me looking a little younger than I am, I get a lot of people, younger girls, coming to me. Obviously, I don't wear a ring all the time because I'm allergic to most metal. Yeah, no, for real.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
And I even tried the silicone one. They don't work, and
Yeah.
it stinks. So I get approached, and I tell them, "There's nothing I could do for you. I'm a married man. They won't give up."
No, because it's a shortage.
If they see the ring, they're going to try even harder, actually.
Right.
Gosh,
That's the thing. You look more like you're 34. So because of that, they figure, I do want a more mature man. One that's like 10 years older than me. I'm 23, so he's 33. Let's go. And you're like, nah, I'm 48. They're like, well, shit, you look 33. And what's crazy about it, too, is like a lot of men would rather approach a woman when they know there's a daddy issue. When there's been a father present that's raised them a certain way. It all depends, right? If they're trying to take advantage of her, she's an much easier target if her daddy wasn't in her life or hasn't spent the time to talk to her and teach her certain things.
Daddy issues are real, which is the question. They can be good and bad. Yes, you can You can have a man that can love you, treat you well, and do the things that you need, but because you are comparing him to your father, who may be a better man, you don't end up with a man because you devalue this one.
I see what you're
You
saying.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You ain't my daddy, so you ain't good enough for me.
But-
and there's we set a hell of a bar. Is
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
'cause we love our girls, but-
yes, but there is a lot of young men, which is why I mentor,
Correct.
because they cannot or do not have what we have inside of us.
Right.
And so because of that standard, a woman may step away or push that man aside because he doesn't measure up to us.
I mean, look, a young man approaches one of my daughters, says hello, can't look her in the eyes, looking down, can't say a full sentence. They're going to eat you alive, those girls.
Yes.
I'll tear your ass up and not even be mean.
Yes.
They're still sweet and motherly about it, but they're going to destroy you.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So then, like to your point, that's why you mentor, because there's a shortage
Yes.
of people, like I said, a shortage of good men, but there's a shortage of just men, period, because they were never made to be men, because they were never shown how.
And we'll talk about that part in the mentoring piece, but
Yeah.
but I just wanted to talk about daddy issues. I mean,
a real
yes,
thing.
they exist.
Real.
Sometimes you can set the bar too high. Sometimes you can set the bar too low and bring issues from childhood into a relationship. So yes, they are real.
I think the statistic is 54% of couples get divorced, or married couples get divorced, which is at a height in our generation, to where my dating pool, or at least like the sexual marketplace, is destroyed by daddy issues. And I mean destroyed.
I believe it.
Like when I hear a girl even has both their parents in her life, I'm like, wow, you are a unicorn in yourself.
Yes.
But this is the thing, the effect, because that's the cause of where they end up, because now it's like what I call it, these girls look for like a literal spiritual spanking. They've never been told no. They never get told where to go when a threat appears. They don't have that. So it's like they go around to all these men for like physical satisfaction, but the second they find one man that does it spiritually or mentally, now they're hooked. Now they're like, oh, even if he is abusive, they look past it because they've never felt the spiritual satisfaction of like being led. It's not even just the provided for. It's not just the protected. It's all aspects coming from one person.
He's feeding a different aspect of their spirit.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Next question. Is it realistic to think a man would date me as a single mom and he doesn't have any children? That's all.
Well, obviously that's a yes, because a lot of that is happening. For me, it was a deal breaker because I didn't want to be the father to someone else's child, and I did not want to break this child's heart because I had no intention of being with the mother long term. I did it one time. And what I mean by that is I met the child. It wasn't where we had an ongoing relationship. And if you brought that upon me too soon, that was a deal breaker for me, because I'm like, you don't even know me. You don't know what I could do to this child. And the fact that you're doing it with me led me to think you were doing it with others. And the damage, as we talked about, that you're inflicting on this child, you have no idea.
You're creating trauma. Exactly.
Right. And I know there are dudes who will take that on, but if I meet a woman and she's got 2-3 baby daddies, I'm not being daddy number 4. If a woman told me, yeah, I got a child, but you ain't never gonna meet it, we dap it
Love
up.
that, yeah.
Love it. Love it. And the reason why is because that means you have enough respect for that child to say, until I vet this Negro out, he don't meet you.
Ever.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's a woman that I can have respect for. And I'm like, you know what? Okay, maybe we can see where this can go, and I might consider it longer.
The question is it realistic to expect that a man with no kids would date you?
Yeah, right?
It's not unrealistic.
It's not unrealistic, but you shouldn't expect it. And honestly, we wouldn't tell any of our sons to date you if you're single. You need to pretty much have your shit together.
Well, another big reason why I would say you have to be in a real great mental space with yourself and the father, because a lot of guy, the ego will not let them allow another guy to discipline their son. Sometimes it's the mother. Well, you're not the father. You can't discipline my son. Okay? You're asking me to pay for everything for this person whom I can't discipline. I'm not saying put my hand on your son, because I don't put my hand on my own daughter, but I have to have a say. I'm the man in the house.
I want to bring something up. All these questions are related to relationships. You're worried about bringing someone into your life. You have a child. Do you think it's realistic to expect that that person that you really want is going to want to be in a relationship with you, right? So Here's some advice that I gave to my daughter. Ladies, listen to Uncle Steph. This is really, really critical. This goes back to what one of my boys, Junior, on the last podcast said. He goes, you worried about the wrong shit. All right. So here's what I mean by that. I want you to do this exercise. It's a 3-part exercise. Okay. Part 1, since all these questions are about relationships, I want you to take a piece of paper and write down the perfect man for you. And I don't mean surface level bullshit. Like really insightful, take time to think about it. He's a gentleman. He's kind. He's altruistic. He reads. He's from a good family. He's healed from his trauma. Whatever it may be. Yes, there's a certain look that you want this person to have. So yes, I want him to be attractive in that way, but don't make that the most important thing, right? And have a list of at least 20 things. He's successful. He's ambitious, right? He's protective. He's a follower of Christ, if that matters to you. 2 is at least 20 things. You can be extremely granular with this. Describe the perfect mate for you. Take time to do this. I want you to do it now. Pause the damn podcast. Just go ahead and write everything down and then come back and listen to the rest of this. So once you have your list, anything that you would want as a woman that really makes sense. He's a good husband. He's a good father. He's considerate. All these different things that truly, truly matter to you. He's loyal. Now, once you have your list of 20, I want you to look at that list and know for sure, with absolute certainty, I promise you, you're going to meet that man. So you talked about timing before. When you meet that person, his second part of the exercise, what about you will be appealing and attractive to that man? Now, answer the question. This wasn't a rhetorical question. I want you to think about what about you is appealing and attractive to that man? Well, then answer the question in the present tense, even though it hasn't happened yet, right? I want you to write this down in present tense and say, I am also attractive in the sense that I take care of my body. I take care of myself. I am successful in my own right. And whatever success means to you. By the way, when I say someone is successful, I'm not talking about this person rich, right? It's whatever they believe that definition of success is, or whatever you believe it is. Are you ambitious? Are you all the things you want to be? Are you basking in your feminine energy to where you don't feel like you have to be a man, right? Even though you're handling things by yourself, you write all these things down. That is what is going to make you appealing to that person. So the third part of the exercise, work on these things. What's going to happen is when you run into that person and you meet that person is automatically attracted to you in the same way. And by the way, you're going to meet about 10 of them that are exactly that, because that's what you attract. You've worked on yourself. The question that I asked before was, why would that person be interested in someone like you? This is why. This is everything that you bring to the table, and not once did I talk about, can you pay half the bills?
The biggest thing is, like he said as well, it's circumstantial. If you're 40 plus, you're probably in the same boat as the person that you're talking to. They probably got a kid, grown up, birds out the nest, boom, you're both good. But the thing is, if you're under 30, which these women are, and you're looking for a man of high value, and you have a child, and you know he does not, well, now you're pushing, an uphill battle.
You have homework to do, and you need to worry about a whole lot of things other than trying to nab that person and just get the person in your life.
It's realistic. But you got to do the work.
It's exactly. You got to do the work. Now, again, like to your point, Justin, your mid 30s and up or whatever it is, kids are like 12, 13 years old. You've already accomplished so much.
Different.
Yeah. And any man you meet will probably be in the same boat. It's a different story.
This is a lengthy one. It says, how do I set clear boundaries in my work field? It's a male-dominated environment, and I don't want to come off as a snitch when they say something inappropriate, or I don't want them to seem like I can't take a joke when I really just don't like what they said.
That's unfortunate that she's in that situation, and I will apologize for all men who are just inappropriate in ways, because that's fucked up. Because
that's
again,
society in general. Now.
It feels like she's trapped in that environment. So how do you set clear boundaries? If you just happen to go out with the team, you go out to lunch, and something inappropriate is said, I think it's totally okay for you to say, it's not being a snitch, it's to be like, well, that was kind of weird or rude or inappropriate or whatever. Say, use the words that you're feeling at the time. Let them know that was fucked up, dude.
Don't do that. Don't say that it was fucked up. You can't do that.
Why not?
In a corporate setting, you can't say that.
Yeah.
Oh, no, don't use that word.
Okay, because we have to preface everything. Remember, this society right now has no filter.
Oh, my God.
You have to,
well, say that's inappropriate.
You were at lunch and we were all eating, and it's dinner, and somebody said something, you be like, Jim, that was fucked up. And now somebody
looking at you crazy.
Yeah, now somebody getting fired.
Now you're sitting at HR.
Right.
So no, but let them know that you're uncomfortable with that. And this is more true of Black women than it's true of anyone else, right? In fact, it's quite the opposite with other ethnicities. They've been silenced for so long. They've been oppressed for so long. It's just something that's innate where they kind of feel like they don't have a voice. You shouldn't speak because they don't want to come off a certain way. But I will tell you that you can let the person know that at that moment in time, whoever it is, or the supporters, everybody else laughing at the joke.
It's inappropriate.
It's inappropriate, dude. That ain't cool. You can say it just like that, man. That is not cool. But you know what? I'm just going to remove myself. If you say it just like that, any reasonable, decent man is going to be like, okay, I was trying to make a joke, but the fact that she said she's going to remove herself makes her real uncomfortable. That person, if they have any decency to them, should come by and apologize and say, oh, my bad. I didn't mean for that to come off that way, or I'm not going to do that again.
What I would ask is that you would first gain clarity into what's being said by asking if it's offensive to you. What do you mean by that? Unless it's obvious to where they say, hey, girl, you got a fat booty. That's obvious. Mm-hmm. But if it's something like a colloquialism that is just kind of an inappropriate, mistimed joke, then give the person some grace, unless this is something that they continually do. Then you might have a conversation with on the side and be like, hey, you seem to always make inappropriate jokes. I'm offended by it. I'm not going to HR, but I'm letting you know, and see if they make a difference.
At first, I was going to be like, dude, what are you doing? Because when you saw where you saw him going with that, because again, the whole thing about maybe you're being too sensitive, comes across as offensive immediately, right? Because it's just like, well, wait, you're just being a woman, you're being emotional, you're being sensitive. So that's why when you first said it, I was like, wait, what? But you did, I'm glad I let you finish your point, because you did say just ask for clarity.
Yeah, ask for clarity.
Because there are certain jokes that may not make sense to you, and regardless of the setting. And so if you ask, what do you mean by that? It's one way to start. Again, like you said, if it's super obvious, you know what it is, and you know what the intentions are. But yeah, there are some people who are just obtuse. Some dudes will make jokes, and sometimes it's not even the person. They say it because they're trying to come off a certain way in front of their friends, trying to be cool, trying to say certain things or whatever it is. They may not even mean it that way or think that way, but it's still, if it's inappropriate, you need to go ahead and check it. I don't think you should be afraid to do it. I think you should go ahead and check it.
We agree.
Yeah.
Next one is, I don't have it, but it says, what is your opinion on staying for the kids in an unhappy situation? I got a good one.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, y'all two got, yeah. All right.
I have a good one for this also. So initially, I'm going to say what I think most sensible people would say is you should not. You should never stay in a relationship just because of the children, because inevitably they will suffer more. The relationship will be toxic. Kids are not stupid. They can read through that. Now, if you're one of my friends who I know is very, very smart, and he and his wife decided to make it work no matter what, even though they're not happy, that's your personal choice. I still think it's the wrong way to approach it. I was talking to a friend years ago, right? I was going through my thing, my own issues in my relationship on my way to get a divorce. And, he and I were just kind of talking about the same thing, because he was going through the same thing as well. And we got on the subject of children, whether or not we should stay in this relationship. And of course, the kids came up like, hey, man, we should, because I had already been married, and I left a relationship that I stayed in way, way, way too long because of my children. So when I got to this situation, I was like, we shouldn't repeat this same mistake. And I said, you know what? Hey, bro, children are not a reason for people to stay together. And his response to me, and it was deeper. It's going to sound really simple, but it was a simple question that made me really rethink. He goes, well, Steph, if children are not a reason for people to fight through a marriage and stay together, what is? It stopped me dead in my tracks. I thought about it because he made me stop, ponder, and kind of changed my mind about things. And then I went, because I put so much thought into it, went back to say, still not a reason. I went back to not because I wanted to be right, but because, again, I did consider both. At the end of the day, the kid will be more damaged long-term if you're staying for the sake of the children.
The best thing that happened to me in my childhood was my parents divorcing or separating December 26, 1976. Best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And it's because of...
When did you realize that?
I realized it probably maybe 6 years later, probably when I was like...
12, 13 years old?
I was probably about 10, 11 years old.
Okay.
And the reason why I realized it then was because the only time that they fought, it was because of me. All of the marital shit is out the way. Mm-hmm. So my mom didn't put my dad on child support. It was okay, I'm not going to try to break you. I don't want anything from you. I'm not taking the house. None of that. You got your own house. We're moving. But you going to take care of him. So their only argument at that point was me. Was you going to pick him up from school at this time? If not, yada, yada. Or, you know, you going to pay his tuition. I ain't. So it was those type things. I was like, so as I grew up and then I started having my own relationships, I was like, they were never going to work together. Rather than to be in that household where they like this,
Before it, right?
I always had a sanctuary because I could go to one house or the other because it was a co-parenting situation, right? So there was times where I just needed to get away from her, and there was times where I just needed to get away from him, so I had two places to go. That, for me, ended up being a better situation than them trying to stay.
I've heard several success stories too from people that I follow. You know, E.T.'s one, you know, Eric Thomas.
Yep.
There's another gentleman I was listening to the podcast where he became big time NFL player, and the name escapes me. But anyway, he was, you know, and they both talk about the same thing. The separation of the parents is what made them who they became, whether it's through adversity, whether it was through just having to fend for themselves, whatever it may have been, but it made them better. It may take a while for you to realize that, but my view on it is unshakable. Definitely consider the kids for sure, because that's something that you guys got together. You made a decision, you made a commitment. If you can make it work, absolutely. But if the sole reason is, well, we have children, we need to stay together for the children, you're not doing them any.
No,
you're not doing them
a favor. Yeah. I mean, and you know, if you remember on Saturday, one of the questions we told the kids to ask is, why is it important for you to have peace at home and peace in school? I've always told people, I can't control the outside world. You go to the outside world, all hell is breaking loose. It's chaotic, right? So there has to be some place that you find peace. And if you can't find it at home, then where do you go?
Yeah.
So if you're growing up in a household, or you're living in a household where there's a bunch of fighting with, you know, parents and stuff like that, that is traumatic for a kid because they can't control the outside world. They should at least have one place they go to find peace.
Well, let's go to the extreme example, right? Let's say you have two very civilized people who decide to stay together for the kids and they are not fighting. Mm-hmm. Are the kids blind to the fact that there is no love between you two?
No.
You know what I mean? Is that good for them?
No. It's harder for you to leave than it is on the kids. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
What you're trying to fix is probably going to damage the most.
Yeah, and by the time you realize that, you're going to be so pissed that you spent another 5, 10 years,
Right.
15 years in something that inevitably was going to break.
Absolutely.
And possibly missed your opportunity to be with the person that you were meant to be with.
Correct.
Yeah, leave and create in two beautiful spaces for them. I think that's better.
Last question is, do you think a DNA test should be standard / mandatory for unmarried couples, and why? Hell yeah.
Yes, we already answered that. We answered that in the intro.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you should. I think it creates a peace of mind just for yourself, because, again, if you're a traditional person living in Western society, eventually if the goal is you're getting married, you're not there yet. You kind of did things out of order a little bit. So since you're doing things out of order, there's a possibility that there was chaos in that order. And you might want to go ahead and get it checked. So my reason would be for you to know, number one. And because overall, there's been so many people put on child support who found out later on the 18th birthday that it's not their kid. If it doesn't work out between you, you don't have to question that. It's your responsibility. Because a lot of dudes, what happens too is, like, once they get hit with those papers, the first thing they start to do is question things that they should have questioned way before. Now you want to question shit.
They may have questioned it. They just didn't want to know the answer.
Yeah. And now that we're not working out, well, you know,
Or put the pressure on her.
It just automatically just takes it away, just takes it out of play. And if it's mandatory, it doesn't make anyone uncomfortable.
And I don't know in what context she asked the question, but I kind of like it coming from a woman. Mm-hmm. Well, it happened to my brother. He's a nurse. He almost lost his license because of a glitch in the system. He started getting paperwork. He was paying. And one day he received a letter. You in arrear such and such amount. Showed up in court, and the girl was there. They both received paperwork. Make the story short, they cancel everything because she didn't want that to begin with.
Right.
But he almost lost his license because he missed the glitch in the system, so he missed a few payment. He was going to lose his nursing license. And then to find out later, he's not even the dad.
Man, listen, I think these tests in any relationship should be mandatory. So what you want to do is you want to contact onsitelabs.net. That's onsitelabs.net. Whether you need a paternity, prenatal, or if you just have some questions regarding DNA or genetics testing, just give them a call at 833-878-3323, and they'll come to you. This is not one of those instances where you want to mess around and not find out.
Lord have mercy. So that, Steph, you had the best solution to this that I've ever heard, and that is at the time of birth to conduct a DNA test on.
If you're not married,
even if you are, married. Even if you are married,
More so if you are.
I don't understand why that isn't standard that they conduct a DNA test when the baby is born.
Well, because I guess it's not standard because it would be infringing on, I guess, your rights as a person. But if we adopted that philosophy as a society and just say that's what we want, I think it should be done.
if I'm married, I don't want it.
You don't want a DNA test
because you don't want to know that she may have.
No, not at all. Not just because if I'm married to a person, that's just me. If I don't trust you, we're not even.
No. I mean, so it's not an issue of trust. So
it is an issue of trust because
if it's standard.
Mm-hmm. No, but what makes
because you're not asking for it?
Because it's saying should the test be standard and mandatory for unmarried couples?
Unmarried couple, that I'm 100% for it.
Unmarried,
but that's what I'm saying.
okay.
If we marry, because I don't want to bring the kid into that situation. That's my.
So would you leave? So would you leave?
If I find out?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's an honest answer.
No, I don't know.
So if you found out that she had stepped out from
The marriage
16 years ago and you're here today, relationship has been amazing.
Maybe there was a situation where something happened and it wasn't even up to her.
I see what you
She
mean.
could never bring it up to me.
I gotcha. I saw a movie like that once.
I have to give her that grace.
Yeah.
That's my wife.
Man, I love what you guys have, man. We're going to talk about this in the next podcast
No,
because that's so powerful. That's such a powerful thing. Because the initial thing for any man to say is, I'm out. But for you to kind of like say it that way, your reaction is, let me pause. Let me pause first.
That's why I don't mess with chicks.
Yeah.
I mess with real women.
It's definitely like a reflection of his reality. Because when I hear it, my reflection is like, I've never met a great woman. So I'd easily be like, oh, yeah, no,
Right.
bro. Not even thinking about it. But you're like, all I've had is a great woman. So it's easy for you.
Absolutely.
The other reason why I think it should be mandatory is because like that great saying that I was told from James, where he said, St. Bernards don't breed giraffes. It's like if I love my bloodline, if I love my father, if I love my grandfather, my mother, all the gene pool that I have inside my body, and now I'm raising some random Joe Schmo's kid, and I'm wondering why my kid can't backpedal properly. I'm like, where did the drop off happen? But it's that thing. It's like I'm a proud man of where I come from in my bloodline. So
Legacy matters.
if I picked you to continue that bloodline and you stepped out and tried to deceive, first, deception and betrayal, like in that book of Dante's Inferno, that's breaking somebody's heart. They actually did put a bonus question in there, though.
There's a bonus question?
Bonus.
We're about to wrap it up. Let's hear the bonus question.
It said, do you think a final closure talk is necessary after ending a relationship? I'm going to say, I think it depends on how it ended. If she cheated,
It depends
close
on
that door and don't let it
Bye.
hit you. Yeah, don't let it hit you, baby. But anything else, being mature, if it ended because of travel, because of work, because of disagreements amongst the family or the wedding and the way that was going to be, there's so many different, it's so controversial as far as like the different circumstances. But I'm going to say, if you ended maturely, it should stay that. If you ended because someone was not mature, when two people argue, it's hard to tell who's the fool, right? So if you're going to be foolish, I'm going to let you stay those ways and keep my peace.
For me and my wife differ on this because we've had this conversation before. She was like, "It's on you to get closure," is what her saying is. She said, "It's not for me to give it." I can feel that. And
I actually agree with her.
I do too. I do too. And but at the same time, I'm not a person that lives in ambiguity. But I think I at least owe you the courtesy of, hey, this is over for me. I'm gonna keep it pushing. Good luck.
I actually think that the best answer to that question was given by a woman who's actually not here, which is your wife.
Right.
And the answer is, nobody owes you closure.
Right.
It's on you to get it. There's not necessarily go into be a conversation about like an exit interview as to why this didn't work out.
Right.
It is what it is. Now, if the person and you ended up, you left on really good terms, like you said, the maturity is there, and you guys want to just talk about. I think to me, the only reason you'd even have that conversation is how can I grow from this? What can I learn? What can I take with me so I'm better for myself and for the next partner that I have? And how can you be better for the next partner that you have? And kind of go from there. But absolutely don't hold a person to it and think that they owe that to you. Also, be careful not to slip back into the relationship.
Right. I was about to say, usually that's what happens.
Usually because, you start, next thing you know, you're talking about growth and you're like, well, you ain't so bad, man. Now that
we talked it out finally, because that's all we ended in the first place.
Is that all it was, baby? Is that all it was?
That's what I've been looking for the whole time.
That's all you had to say.
That's good. That's so good.
Just go ahead and move on, man.
Bye.
That's so good. I'm glad they had that as the bonus.
That was a good bonus question for sure.
All right, good deal.
I want to send a big thank you to the ladies who sent in their questions. And I hope it wasn't just curiosity, but a genuine need to get someone else's perspective to help you grow. Now, remember, we are real men having real conversations. If you're having an issue, something physical or mental, definitely contact a licensed professional. I want to thank my co-hosts, Leon, Justin, and Delva. And if you guys really enjoyed the episode, if it helped you at all, please share it with at least one friend. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next Monday when we discuss whether or not men can truly be faithful in a relationship. Can we be monogamous? I'll see you next week.
Point of view.